So, art of the cover letter, Jeff Fouts, here we go. So, the way that I like to begin this session is answering some of the common questions that students have when they come in and talk to me about doing cover letters. So, first of all, a common question is, what's the purpose of a cover letter to begin with? Why do I even need to create a cover letter? I have a resume. I have everything in my resume. Why do I need to create a cover letter? Well, you have to remember that the purpose of the cover letter is to basically introduce yourself to an organization, demonstrate your interest in the company, or better yet, a specific vacancy in the company. And you want to use the cover letter to draw more attention to your resume and motivate the reader to interview you. So often this cover letter, is your first contact with a prospective employer, and this is your first impression that you're giving an employer. So we like to recommend that even if an employer does not clearly specify that they're looking for a cover letter, Christopher Perello, who is my partner, he's the director of career services, and I will always tell students we encourage you to always create a cover letter. So once again, it's your way of demonstrating who you are, and it allows you to be more verbose, if you will, in the way that you're introducing yourself, rather than just stating things, the skills that you have or the things that you've done in bulleted format. And I'm going to be giving you a lot of examples tonight of different things that you can put on your cover letter, so that hopefully it will make more sense as we go through this. Another reason why you create your cover letter is because you want to entice the recruiter to read your resume. So oftentimes recruiters read the cover letter first before they even bother reading your resume. Once again, this is your first impression. So if you did a good job and you wrote a good letter, this is going to want the recruiter to want to now look at your resume. So it's important that, because we're requiring you to do a cover letter, that you write the best cover letter that you can. And even more important, you're going to have a cover letter for every position that you apply to. And I know what you're saying to yourself right now. You're like, oh man, are you kidding me? Like, I'm applying to 50 jobs. So you telling me that I need a cover letter for every job that I apply to? Well, the answer is yes, you do. You need a cover letter to match the job, and here's why. Because in the cover letter, you're explaining the skills that you have been able to obtain and how those skills are matching the job that you're applying for. So rarely do two jobs have the exact same skills. So you are going to have to keep tailoring your resume to match the skills that the job is looking for. So what I would encourage you to do actually is, on your computer, create a folder, call it every job that you apply to, and then put your cover letter inside of that folder. The other thing that a cover letter does for you, besides what I've already mentioned, is it's your writing sample that you're giving companies as well. So it's, you're letting the companies know if you're even able to write or not. So you want to make sure that your cover letter is articulate. The information that you have in your cover letter is succinct. And you want to use language that the job description is using, because you want to match, or you want to show that you have the skills that the employer is looking for. So you want to use the same types of language that the employer is looking for. And the last thing, and the most obvious thing, is you always 100% want to make sure that your spelling and your grammar is correct. The number one reason why employers do not read cover letters is because of spelling and grammar errors. I'm telling you guys that the first misspelled word that's on that cover letter, your cover letter is going into what I call the special file. Make sure that your cover letter is spelled correctly and proper grammar. Now, you can have friends look at it, family look at it. You can always send it to me or Christopher. We're happy to look at it. You can send an email that says, hey, Jeff, would you mind looking at my cover letter, making sure that my spelling and grammar is correct? I'd be happy to do that. I have a BS in secondary education in English. I have a knack for quickly pulling out misspelled words. I'd be happy to do that. Not only that, but you're using Microsoft Word, and Microsoft Word automatically underlines misspelled words. So you have plenty of tools available to help you with that. All right, I think you get the point of making sure that your spelling and grammar is correct. Now that we know why we're creating a cover letter, let's talk about how to create the cover letter. So, and you'll see that there are common themes throughout the presentation that we're talking about. So the first one is you're using the job ads language in your letter, and we talked about this. So basically what you're doing is reading or looking at the job description. You're pulling out keywords that matches the skills that you have. I mean, otherwise, why are you even applying for the job, right? I mean, you have the skills. And you're going to show in the cover letter how your skills match the job requirements. This is your way of being able to sell yourself and your experiences and why you and only you are a good fit for this position. So this is a way to pull out your uniqueness. And of course, you always want to be positive. You know, you don't want to talk badly about previous employers or a previous experience that you had, unless you're able to put a positive spin on that. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. One of the other things that you want to make sure you do when you're creating your cover letter is make sure that the cover letter header, it matches the header that you have on your resume. That way, if the two ever get separated, they're very easily to bring back together just by looking at the headers, and the employers can match them up easily. Otherwise, they'll look at a cover letter that looks completely different than a resume, and they'll have no clue that these two should be connected with each other unless they have to take the time to read them. And I'm going to tell you they're not going to do that. So, and one of the other things I like to tell students is the easier that you make it for employers, the better it's going to be for you. So make sure that your resume header matches your cover letter header and vice versa. Your cover letter header matches your resume header. All right. So first paragraph in your cover letter. It's all about the hook. So let's talk about this. Your cover letter should have roughly around 3 to 4 paragraphs inside of it, and it should be no more than 1 page in length. So I'm actually going to encourage you to have 3 paragraphs, and here's what those 3 paragraphs should contain. The first paragraph is going to contain the hook, which means why are you even interested in applying for the position in the first place? The second paragraph should be how your skills match up with the job description requirements. And the third paragraph is going to be your call to action, where you're going to tell the recruiter or the employer to contact you to talk more about this experience. So let's talk about the hook first. So with the hook, this is your grabbing the employer's attention, letting them want to read more about what's in your cover letter. So you want to use opening statements that will persuade the recruiter to keep reading. And these include the things like so what or the why as to why you are looking at this opportunity to begin with. So here's some ideas. Telling a story to demonstrate why you're drawn to the position is always a good start. Stories are a great way of explaining your experience and how you've been able to accumulate as much experience as you have. Try to paint an interesting picture about yourself and why you're interested in this opportunity. And try to call out the most important thing that you want the hiring manager to know, because oftentimes the recruiters are only scanning your information, they're not actually reading it. So if you can quickly put in there the most important thing that you want recruiters to know in that first paragraph, that's always a good idea. So let me give you an example. And just for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to read it to you, just so we all get the idea of how important this is. So my credo in life is simple: always strive to learn and never give up. This aligns perfectly with the hiring goals at Fidelity to always hire employees who want a position that cultivates lifelong learning. That is why I feel so passionate about applying for the position of systems analyst in the Jersey City Fidelity branch. So if you break down this opening hook example, you'll see that the writer has shown a little bit about themselves. My credo in life is simple. They have tied that credo into one of the requirements of the job, which is, and they've looked at what Fidelity is looking for. They want employees who want to cultivate lifelong learning. So it fits in perfectly. And then the last sentence, they managed to tie in those two ideas with the fact that they're now applying for the systems analyst job in the Jersey City Fidelity branch. That's a very creative way of writing an opening hook statement. Versus, my name is, I'm a student at Syracuse University. I think I'd be a great fit. This job would help me because, I mean, come on. That's so boring. And everybody puts this on their cover letter. As you can see on my resume, I have enclosed my resume for your consideration. So if you can stay away from these types of statements, the better off you're going to be. They see this all day long, recruiters. So when you're trying to make yourself stand out from others, actually having a story and talking about why you're interested in the position that you're going for makes it so much more appealing for recruiters to want to keep reading and find out more about you. I hope that this is starting to make sense for you on why cover letters are so important. So one of the things we talked about was telling a story. Another reason why you tell stories, besides being able to get your personal information out there in a creative way, is people remember stories. So recruiters are going to tend to remember your personal story about why you're interested in this particular job than they are if you just say, I would like to apply for the business analyst position that you put on LinkedIn last Sunday, September 16th. So keep that in mind. Okay, so here's what I would recommend that you do when you're starting to write your cover letter. So this is a great way to start writing that first paragraph. List your qualifications for the position, your qualifications. So I would encourage you to split your paper in two, and on the right-hand side, list what the job requirements are, and on the left-hand side, list how you can fit those requirements of the job description. What skills and abilities do you have to match what the job is looking for? Now think about, how did you gain those skills? How did you come up with those skills in the first place? Which experiences will you be able to add into your letter, and then start writing it out? Try to put your first paragraph into some type of story that has some kind of hook into it. Like I knew since the third grade that I was going to be a data scientist because I always loved data, and I always asked my teachers for more information so that I could manipulate the data somehow to try to get a result out of that and try to analyze the result. Like, I love that, and I've been doing it since the third grade. And then wrap it up, and a great way to wrap it up in that first paragraph is just to talk about talk about the position that you're going for. Okay, some other things that you can think about as you're thinking about writing your cover letter, like, what did you learn from your experiences that you've had? And this is how you can turn a negative into a positive. So if something didn't go right in a previous job or a previous internship, what did you learn from that? If a project failed, or if you weren't able to pull the data out of the database that you're hoping to get out of it, or you kept putting in the wrong code. What did you learn from that? And how did that make you feel as you were struggling through that experience? Why did you seek out this experience? What is so surprising about it? Why was it challenging? These are all great things that you can put into your story to try to let the recruiter or the employer know why this position that they have open is so important to you, or why you're the best fit for this position. You've been through it. You've made mistakes. You learn from those mistakes. And because of that, this is why you're the best person for the position that's currently open. It's a great way to tie in that the next paragraph, the second paragraph, as to why you're the best fit for this position, answering some of these questions. Okay, so your first paragraph should present a takeaway conclusion about yourself. Reader immediately knows you have something they want, makes them more likely to read the rest of the letter, as we've been talking about. So let me give you an example of a not so great way of starting that first paragraph. And by the way, this is an actual example that I pulled off somebody's cover letter. So I want you to think about, before we look at this bad example, something to think about, you guys, is put yourself in the shoes of the recruiter. Put yourselves in the shoes of the employer and imagine them reading your cover letter. Are you getting out or putting in the best that you can put into that cover letter to really grab your attention? Because if you're bored reading your cover letter, guess what? The employer's probably bored too. So now take a look at this statement. I am writing to possibly explore the opportunity to be so honored to be interested in applying for the position of. So I want you to think about this. This sentence does not make sense. I am writing to possibly explore. Okay, possibly is such a passive voice. Like, you're not going to say to the recruiter, I may be interested, I might have the skills, if you don't have anybody else, I might be a good person for the job. Like, these aren't things you would say. So if you're going to write something like this, then you say, I'm writing to explore the opportunity in applying for the position of. Like, you're not going to say to be so honored to be interested in. Like, you're either interested in it or you're not. And you don't have to be honored to check out the position. The position's open for everybody. So I'm writing to explore the opportunity in applying for the position of. So let's reword that. We're going to make it very simple. I'm applying for the position of X that was advertised on your website, LinkedIn, etc. That's a great way to start. Very clear, very easy first sentence. Now, after that sentence is where you bring in the hook, right? So why are you applying for this position? And this is where you start talking about your story. I knew that I was going to go into data science after this happened. Or, my friend got me into data science because they were interested in it, and I in turn became interested in it. And these are the things that I've been doing. So, how did you get into this field to begin with? And let the employer know your excitement for this particular position. Now, once you write that first sentence, check out the rest of this first paragraph. I'm going to give you another example. So you wrote your first sentence. I'm applying for the position of X that was advertised in such and such. With 8 years of experience managing multi-step data collection projects in academic and industry settings, and an ability to establish and maintain relationships with clients, stakeholders, and international collaborators, I am excited to bring my creativity and structured approach to this data analyst role. There you go. It's well written, talks exactly about what you've done, and it talks about why you are the best person for this position. And you added a little bit of, I'm excited to bring my creativity and structured approach to this data analyst role. And you talked about why. That's a great example of a good first paragraph or opening. So I've given you 2 examples now of different ways that you can start out your first paragraph rather than, my name is, I go to Syracuse University, I think I'd be great at. There's a big difference there. This kind of way of writing that you're looking at here might be a little bit different than what you're used to. But man, if you can master this and really work on this, it's going to take you a long ways. So I want you to think about that first paragraph, and I want you to really work on that to grab the employer's attention with why you're interested in that job. But I want to point out a tip to you about your cover letters. And when I read this, I thought it was very interesting, and I wanted to make sure I shared it with you. So everything in your cover letter should be echoed by something in your resume. However, not everything on your resume needs to be mentioned in your cover letter. So I want you to make sure you understand the difference. When you're writing your cover letter, what you're doing is reinforcing what you have on your resume. So you're going to point out, and we talk about this when you come in and talk to me about your resumes. We talk about the most important thing that you've done on that internship or that job should be your first bullet. Like, you should expound upon that idea in your cover letter. Like, pull out that one main idea, and what did you do with that main idea? That's what goes into your cover letter. Now you're able to explain it. But not everything on your resume needs to be in your cover letter. So if you're talking about other things in your cover letter, like personal things, or you're telling your story, that doesn't need to go into your resume. Remember, your resume are your skills and abilities, where your cover letter is your way of introducing yourself to employers. That's the difference between the two. So I'm going to encourage you to have 1 or 2 middle paragraphs. I'm actually going to encourage you to have 1, but if you need to, then you have room to make another paragraph. Because I like cover letters to be 3 paragraphs total. Your hook, your middle paragraph, and your call to action. When I was in a position where I was looking for a new job, I applied, and I'm not even joking, to hundreds of jobs. And I was not getting any hits. Nobody was calling me back. And I was devastated. I'm like, what is wrong with my information? Like, I thought it was good. So I took my cover letter and I gave it to one of my good friends. And I asked her to be brutally honest with my cover letter. And I said, please read it. And I would like your impression of, put yourself in the mind frame of an employer. What am I missing in my cover letter? So what she pointed out to me made all the difference in the world. And here's the key. What I was doing in the past in my middle paragraph was I was simply listing those things that I did on previous jobs. So all I was doing was listing my skills. What she said to me was, now you need to take those skills that you're listing and apply them to the requirements of the job. In other words, what are you going to do for me as the employer? I like the fact that you told me what you've done in the past, but how are you now going to take those skills and apply them to what I'm looking for as the employer? And man, that opened up the heavens. That was like, holy moly, mind blown, right? Immediately, I started taking my skills, and for every job that I saw that I knew that I was qualified for, I took those skills and I applied them to the requirements of the job. And I said, I have these skills, and here's how these skills are going to relate to what you're looking for. And once again, I'm not even joking. Once I did that, I got many, many hits for jobs. And as she was one of them. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm sitting in this seat today doing this workshop online with you, is because I got hired at Syracuse University because of the fact that I believe I changed my cover letter and hooked them in. So it works. It works. Your middle paragraphs are, what can you do for me? Like, that's the one thing you should write on the right-hand side in the margins of your cover letter. Make sure it answers the question, what can you do for me? So let's take a look. Let's take a look at some examples. Okay, so here's a not much drama example. As a project leader in the Student Healthcare Consulting Group, I oversaw a team of 3 students and completed an extensive market analysis of the medical device field to determine a suitable pricing model for a wearable device developed by the client. So once again, when you're looking at this, you're saying to yourself, well, that's all well and good, but how does this apply to what it is that the employer is looking for? All you're doing is talking about what you've done. Now we need to tie it into how this experience builds into the requirements of the job. So I'm going to try to give you another example of what I'm talking about. And I'm going to apologize in advance. This is kind of long, but stick with me because I think it makes a lot of sense. So I want you to take a look at the difference. When I was serving as a project manager, project leader in the student consulting group, my team had engaged with a client seeking market access information for a new wearable device. So I'm talking in the story, right? Having a conversation. We faced 2 immediate challenges, and they go on to talk about the challenges. In thinking about the project, I saw their lack of experience as a possible advantage. You're taking a negative and turning it into a positive. Lack of experience was an advantage and took the opportunity to encourage the new team members to think creatively. In 2 brainstorming sessions, we successfully generated sufficient data. I found it really satisfying to see how well the new members complemented and then learned from our more practiced approach. Okay, so it's not really highlighting the secret that I gave you, but what it is doing is talking about your experience in a conversational way without simply listing, like you do on a resume in bulleted form, those things that you have the skills in. So this is a much more conversational, relaxed way of talking about your skills and experiences. Now, here's some things to think about in that middle paragraph. There are concepts that are hard to highlight on a resume that you're able to highlight on the cover letter. So learning from an experience that went well or badly, you can't highlight that on a resume, but you can easily talk about that on a cover letter, which I just gave you an example. You can combine experiences. You can explain why you did something, not just that you did it. And you can demonstrate passion or enjoying or being excited about something by choosing your words carefully. This is your way of conveying how your passion and your excitement for what it is that you've been doing. Okay, so that's the middle. So we have the hook at the beginning. Why are you even applying for this in the first place? And then we have the, what are you going to do for me? Middle. Now let's talk about the last paragraph. The last paragraph should answer 3 questions. Why do you want the job? Why do you want to work here? Call to action. So you are reiterating in that last paragraph why you want the job and why do you want to work here. Now, one of the only ways that you're going to be able to do this and do it successfully is if you do research on the organization and find out as much as you can about the opportunity that they have advertised. So you can go onto LinkedIn and see if you can network with people in the organization, alumni in the organization, and ask them questions. You can research more about the role itself, research more about the company itself, to find out as much information as you can about the job and about the opportunity. The call to action is your way of saying, contact me. That's what you want to say to employers. Once you're done and you've filled out all your information, the very last thing that you're going to say to employers is, contact me and let's talk more about this opportunity. Or contact me. I'm really excited to talk more about this opportunity. Not something like, it would be great if you could, if we could talk about this sometime next week. Like, just call to action. Tell them, give me a call. Let's talk more about this opportunity. So here's a perfect call to action sentence. Please contact me so that we can discuss this exciting opportunity and my qualifications in more detail. Very simple, very straightforward, gets to the point. Please contact me. Not, it would be great to talk to you, or contact me at your earliest convenience, or as I talked about on my resume. Just very simple, straight, please contact me to discuss this opportunity. That's it. Besides wrapping up why you are still the best person for this job. So let's review. So your first paragraph, what's your hook? What are you applying for? So what? What's your story? Why are you applying for this job? Not just the what, why? 2 or 3 examples as to how you are going to fit the needs of the opportunity at hand. How do your skills match up with the skills that are being offered? Your last paragraph, your call to action, reinforce why you are confident that you're perfect for the position. It's not, I believe I'm the best person. I believe I have the best skills. No, you are the best person. You do have the best skills. That's what you need to start implying in your writings. Those are the things that you need to start stating in your writings. Be confident in your skills and your abilities. And you'll see that will open up a lot of doors for you going forward. Here's some cover letter do's and don'ts. Let's do the don'ts first so that we can end on a positive note. So first thing you don't want to do is repeat your resume. You certainly don't want to do that. You want to highlight certain things on your resume, the important things, and elaborate on those. You don't want to sound disingenuous. And if you don't know what that means that you're coming across as if you don't really want this job. Even though you're applying for it, you're coming across as you're not very interested in it. Like those sayings that we talked about at the beginning of the session. Hi, my name is. Like, that's disingenuous. Like, you don't care. Using to whom it may concern, or sir or madam. Yeah, those are no-nos. We don't do that anymore. So it's always advisable to try to get a name of somebody that you can apply to. And if you can't get a name, then if you jump to the do side, you could put something like Dear Hiring Manager, or a lot of organizations have hiring committees. So you would say Dear Hiring Committee. So take out the to whom it may concern or sir or madam kind of thing, and replace it with hiring manager or hiring committee if you don't have an exact name. Don't go over one page. Very, very important. Even if you have 20 years of experience, it's still advisable to keep it to one page. It's succinct. It's clear. You're getting all of your ideas in one page. They're not going to read past one page, recruiters. And once again, putting yourself in their shoes, you get thousands of cover letters a day. You're not reading these. You're not reading a script for a movie. So you're going to get tired and you're going to start scanning. And anything over one page, they're discarding. Include spelling or grammatical errors. Don't do that. We talked about that. Include cliches, all right? Like cliche sayings. Like the grass is always greener. Like that's a cliche. And whatever you do, don't undersell yourself. Like a lot of students will come to me and they'll be like, I have opportunities, or I've had experience in the past that has nothing to do with what I'm applying for. And what I tell students is that's okay, because what you're saying to an employer is, first of all, you're employable, you've had a job or an internship, that's very important. And second of all, you're responsible, like you've had responsibilities in the past, and there's always something that you've done in that previous experience, whether it relates to what you're applying to or not, that maybe you learned or maybe you can apply to this experience that maybe the employer didn't even think of. So never undersell your skills. Even if you were a lifeguard, if you were a waiter or waitress, like, don't undersell those. Customer service skills are very, very important in today's market. So some of the do's, like name drop. Oh man, you know, what's the point of having a network if you're not going to use the names that you've networked with? So use the names of people that you know. Use the names with their permission of alumni or people that you know in the organization. Hey, if your dad works there, then he works there. If you want to work there and your dad works there, that's okay. Just use that to your advantage. Try to receive feedback from others, and this is where like Christopher and I can come in to help you. Like, we can look at your cover letter and we can give you some suggestions on how you can make your cover letter better. Keep your cover letter simple. You know, you don't want to go over one page. Use common language and speech patterns. You know, you don't have to be Einstein when you're writing your cover letter. It can be very simple. It's a conversation. That's all it is. You're having a conversation with a recruiter. You're telling them about your experiences. You don't have to use buzzwords. You don't have to use the biggest words that you can find in the dictionary. Talk like you would talk, but just make sure that it's clear. Show what you can do for the company, and that's what you're going to do in that second paragraph, and make a strong, convincing argument for yourself on why you're the best person for this job. If you can take some or all of these tips that I'm sharing with you in this presentation, and now either create your cover letter or redo your cover letter from how you've had it in the past, this will open up a lot of doors for you. Your cover letter will look so different than anyone else's cover letter who has not attended one of these workshops or has not really looked into how to write a cover letter. So I'm going to tell you from my own experience and use me as an example. Your cover letter is your introduction, your first impression. Your cover letter oftentimes is what employers see first before they go to your resume. So you want to make sure that your cover letter is conveying the information that you need it to convey in order for them to read on. And if that's the last thing that I leave you with on this workshop, is you want the employer to read on, right? Swipe left, not swipe right. So to reiterate, you can always sign up for a career advising session on Handshake with myself or Christopher. We're always happy to help you. Look for an appointment and sign up for. We're adding appointments all the time. So if you can't find an appointment today, keep looking, because we're always adding. And we're happy to talk to you and help you with any of your career goals, whether they be resumes, cover letters, interviews, jobs, internships, anything that you have.